up, YouTube? I am your host, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, back in here with one more video. All right, guys, the hidden side of paternity fraud. Now, this video comes from the Women Against Paternity Fraud YouTube page. Okay? Shout out to my Discord. Shout out to my Patreon. I just created a new channel down in there for the members of the Discord gang to suggest me content. This is where this video comes from. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys' support. It's about a 12 or so minute video. I'm not sure how much I'm going to play of the video, but I want to see what they have to say. Without further ado.
Paternity fraud is a worldwide epidemic.
You can't legislate morality, but our laws and policies should always seek the truth.
They want the money from whoever they can get it from.
Or de-incentivize people from lying.
I refuse to continue to pay for somebody else's child.
Paternity fraud creates devastation
Trigger
within
alert.
families, and yet it is an issue that is rarely talked about or discussed.
Paternity fraud is a worldwide epidemic. It's not just fraud to the father.
To the child,
It's
too.
fraud to the child.
Facts.
It's fraud to the child's family. It's fraud to the taxpayer. It's fraud to the government.
Back in 2000, I found out a very special, dear child I thought was my daughter. I found out after DNA testing that she was not my child, and that in fact, I had been deceived about who her actual biological father was. I went to court expecting that this would be something that would be resolved just based on the truth, because I could prove I hadn't lied, and we could prove that her mom either lied or made a mistake. The court didn't want to hear it. So after appealing it through all of the Court of Appeals, and I took it to the U.S. Supreme Court, proving that there's over 1 million men and boys like me in that situation.
Paternity fraud can occur in many ways. Default judgments, in-hospital paternity acknowledgments, marital presumption of paternity, and lack of legal representation.
My children had talked to me and asked if we could find out where we're from, because we've always been curious. My oldest daughters came back, and I wasn't on hers, and she wasn't on mine. So we decided to pursue further DNA that was state sanctioned through Tennessee. It cost us around $200 to get that done. We got the results back in within 4 or 5 days. The results came back as a 0% of me being the father.
Even if
This is sick. This is so sick. This is so disturbing to listen to these men's stories, and I feel for them. I don't understand why before you put your name on a birth certificate, a paternity test is not given. I for the life of me, I just don't know. Give them a choice. Give us an option so that we can know. But if we're tying ourselves without 100% guarantee, the technology is there. What is it, $200-300? I'll pay the $200-300. Okay. Now, I did a video not too long ago on a similar topic of this, and one of the questions that I asked is there a way to figure this out while the child is still in the womb, still cooking, still incubating? And I found out that it was, but that is particularly expensive. A lot of you guys were like, yeah, MTR, you didn't know that? But yeah, it's expensive. I want to say it's over $1,000. I got a couple of emails that came in that talked about that. But this idea that as a man, you have to sign your name on the dotted line, and from a government perspective, be responsible for that child, even if the child is not yours, knowing what the numbers are of potential paternity fraud in the United States, knowing, watching the Maury shows, knowing that this is a thing, that often it's not even about being the father, it's about being the man that they want. Pure and utter selfishness. Pure and utter garbage selfishness. That's what that is. I've not shared this on the channel before, but this has actually plagued my family as well. I found out when I was in college, I have a half sister that's older than me. My pops had no idea.
If a DNA test proves that a man is not the biological father of a child, he could still be mandated to pay child support for a child he did not father at the expense of his own biological children.
My experience with paternity fraud is being proclaimed to be a father with a default judgment. How it affects my biological children is now they're in the belief that maybe they have another sibling out there. Financially, it affects my children because I'm not capable of keeping up with the bills and certain necessities that my own children need when it comes down to me working a 40-hour work week, and at the end of the week, I'm being stripped from everything that I work for.
Not only does paternity fraud affect men, but women can be paternity fraud victims too.
The wife of the guy, the mother of the guy, the fiance, the girlfriend, his sister, his grandmother, his aunt. All of these are people who are often affected because when he can't pay the child support, he goes to jail, and they're often the people who are trying to come up with the money to get him out.
Paternity fraud has impacted me personally, emotionally. It's been, it's been extremely emotional. My husband is a sweet, sweet man. He would never do anything to hurt anyone ever. To watch him go through this and to see how it's affected him, it's just been really, really hard. And to see him being taken advantage of has been really, really hard. He's very trusting. He's a very honest person. She swore to him that the baby was his, and he believed her.
This is an issue that impacts.
You know, another thing that we don't talk about on this channel a lot is, the period to become pregnant is actually a lot harder than what people think. It's about a 4 to 5 day time frame. It might actually be shorter than that in a given month. So to not know in that 4 to 5 days, or to open yourself up to intercourse without protection with multiple people in that short amount of time. We don't talk about the nastiness of that, the implications of what that is. So knowing how high paternity fraud is in the United States, to me, it goes back to how are we incentivizing people to make the correct decisions? I think at the point of baby is here, give them a test. And then the conclusion of that test, yes, I will then sign my name on the birth certificate. Otherwise, you're doing so many people a disservice.
The world and leaves its victims in financial, legal, and emotional distress.
This entire experience was emotionally devastating to us. The total for just the attorney is nearly $40,000. And does not include the therapy, which I anticipate will be about $5,000 per year, if not more.
I know that my husband has suffered a lot of depression over it. It's just that idea that I'm not really his dad, and at some point he's not going to want me, kind of a thing. Not only are they taking somebody's money, but they're involving children. I don't know how it can get any worse than that.
This is not an issue that is only limited to one segment of the population. In all of the years that I worked with states reforming legislation, so many of our opponents try to say this is an issue that only affects low-income minorities. But there are people who are from all ethnic backgrounds, political, social status, even religious. I've even met 5 pastors who are paternity fraud victims. Our various state bodies have not been willing to measure how many people are affected by it because it would actually point out the need to do more DNA testing.
Yeah.
Falsely accused men who fall behind on their child support
It's so
payments
ridiculous.
can have their driver's and business license suspended, their taxes intercepted, and can even be jailed for the crime of not fathering a child.
As of right now, for what I owe $31,000 and counting. License is already being suspended almost to this point. I've been a supervisor in the oil fields and all that, and as soon as they strip your license, they automatically demote you, take away your truck, take away everything that you've worked hard for.
It is also reported that paternity fraud occurs when a mother does not truthfully disclose the identity of the biological father. However, this is not always the case.
Well, I am a victim of paternity fraud myself. I was legally separated from my ex-husband and became involved with my daughter's biological father. We had a daughter together, and for 2 years he had a relationship with my daughter. You know, pay child support. We had a relationship, and then after the second year, he decided, I'm going to use the presumption of marriage law. He took my ex-husband to court to say he's now the legal father. I'm not. I'm out of the loop. We fought for about 11 years.
She was not going to perpetuate a lie to her child, and because of that, now her child is actually fatherless. According to the state of California, her child has no father because she wouldn't pin the wrong man.
Whoa, Callie, you are bugging. Yo. Cashapp says Elisa illustrate the complexity of paternity fraud victims, but the extent of the devastation reaches as far as our nation's military and first responders. Callie, you are bugging. I will never move to you, Callie.
Vulnerable.
Bump your laws and bump your taxes. I don't want nothing to do with you, okay? Callie, you crazy. Callie in Florida, y'all both crazy, but Callie's even crazier.
To paternity fraud. In many cases, this is to take advantage of their income and military benefits.
The military benefits that my husband had definitely were a reason why she chose my husband to be the father. That was told to us by her ex-friend that told my husband. He was in the Marines for 6 or 8 years prior, and then he was in the Army. So he had just gotten out of the Marines, and then he had met her and then joined the Army about a year after that. I do believe that him being in the military did make it very easy for her to commit paternity fraud, because he was away, and when she became pregnant, she didn't tell him. He had just gotten home and had been home for a month, and then she told him she was pregnant.
Paternity fraud.
You know what's also powerful about this video is that this is created by women, which, you know, I don't think that you can have movements catch wind unless it comes from those that it affects or that are a part of the problem. You understand? So it's key that we have both sides of the coin, both genders, uniting together to push these ideas forward, and that we have platforms to be able to speak about this. So guys, drop a like on the video to make sure that we get content like this in front of as many people as possible, because it is utterly ridiculous that a person can choose who the father is and hope that no one wants to get a DNA test. It's absolutely preposterous. A little bit more.
Fraud is an international issue, and Women Against Paternity Fraud has members all across the globe.
Well, I'm from Sydney, Australia. My background, I guess, is that I married a man who had been married before for 20 years and had 2 children to his former wife. About 2.5 years into our family court case, his ex began talking about some deep, dark secret involving his daughter, which would cause her not to want to be with her father anymore and not to want to live with us anymore.
Dirty lady.
But certain things came out of the woodwork. Talk about how his daughter was markedly different from his son. Finally, I said to my husband, do you think that this deep, dark secret might be about biology? At the stage that his daughter had been conceived, he wasn't sleeping with his wife. He was extremely surprised to find that she was pregnant, but he just assumed that the child was his. It never occurred to him that she was sleeping with anybody else. We decided to take a paternity test. The first paternity test came back as 100% negative. That is absolutely no possibility of his daughter being his biological child.
Very few paternity fraud victims find justice in our court systems, but are there really any winners in paternity fraud cases?
It's been almost a year and a half since I saw her. There's a lot of people that say that with our case, yes, we were a success. We made it through the court case, but there really are no winners in any of this. There's damage done to relationships between myself and the child, between my wife and the child, between my biological child and her as well.
Today,
I mean, that's damn near irreparable damage. Just like I shared with you guys earlier, specific in my life as well, what we really lost out on is the opportunity to bond as a family from young. I mean, it was an awkward experience being introduced to my half sister who had 2 kids. So I became an uncle overnight, and I was raised an only child. So I became, I had a sibling overnight, and then I was an uncle overnight. We're super cool now, but it's not like growing up together, brother and sister. And because of that, that opportunity was robbed from me and my family. This paternity fraud ish goes deep. It goes deep. And too many of us know someone who has had this happen to them. All right. Shout out again to Women Against Paternity Fraud. I appreciate this content. I got to go back in and see what other content that you guys have to hopefully give you an additional platform to speak your truths. Wholeheartedly appreciate the video. Guys, I'll leave a link down in the description box down below. I did not go over the entirety of the video because I want you to go over there and watch it. Okay? Until next time, YouTube.